While I wait for people to come in, if they're going to come. I mean, it's like, I'm going to do it anyway, but... what is that tool called? I want to say... Slop, that's it. Yep, slop. Let's do... I mean... We could do it up here. If I do it down here, then people... The chat will be like, the chat will already be there. This is one of those things that I need to incorporate into whatever tool I come up with for that. It just annoys me that this thing, when I do it up here, it's not big enough. Watch. It'll be like too small. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Go ahead and change that. I think I'm forever done with the other one though. I don't even think people can see that, can they? I mean, you'd have to really look hard, but it is possible to see it. It's just not. It's like, what is that he typed? I mean, at least it's centered, sort of. Hey, you know what? I bet I could change it just a little bit. Let's do that. AC screen key. Oh, wrong one. Wait. What the heck? That doesn't make any sense. Did I misspell it? Oh, I did. Duh. Duh. So what now? What? Oh, there. Let's make a little bit lower, shall we? Alright, so now P kill screen key. Screen key. It makes it a little bit bigger. Could probably go up to 40 and not have it be too uncentered. I mean, I don't know. It's like you'd have to really look to be able to see it. But it's seeable if you've got, I mean, you know, it's kind of not necessary stuff anyway, so. One more, adapt PKL, screen key. My lips always get so chapped. You guys get the chapped lips in the winter? I always do. All right. How about 40? Oh, not 50, 40. And let's try that. So, I mean, that's fine. I suppose that's fine. It's not like, it's not centered, but oh well. Wait, I have an idea. Testing, make sure. Yeah, there we go. Okay. What? No Tmux up here. What? Yeah, I'm gonna have to keep it that high. If I try to do any lower than that, it's gonna be a problem. So that's gonna have to do for now. Yeah. I wonder if you could make an X window. I think you can do that. I think you can tell it what window to write it to, and then I could put the window on top using Tmux. And yeah, whatever. I'm just playing around. I don't know if we're gonna get a lot of people here today or not. This is just me messing around today. It's a little bit of a weird time, so a lot of my regulars are probably like, "What are you doing?" Yeah, Beaconbot. That's where everybody is. They're over watching Mr. Beaconbot. And he's awesome to watch. A little crazy sometimes. I develop things. That's a new one. I haven't heard of that person. Game devs. What is Beaconbot doing, by the way? What's he doing today? Can we go peek on him? Peek on him, say hi to him. I'm not affiliate, so I don't feel bad watching other people's streams temporarily. That's technically a violation, I think, of terms. But I'm not trying to get subs or anything. I'm just trying to see what he's doing. I can't hear him though. What are you doing, Mr. Beaconbot?
Here. Okay, so Milkman didn't appear, but he is. The effect is happening. Okay, cool. So I think we're not toggling source on.
Interesting.
Okay, cool. We're not toggling the source on now.
What's he doing it in Python? Yay,
Because
Python.
we're toggling it off too fast. Oh yeah, zoom and spin. We can't do toggle off for zoom and spin. We can for rise source.
Uh-huh. And he's got, what does he got going on? Markdown for completion.
Okay, I gotta let me make this work, and then I'm gonna remove the go routines, or make another version of zoom and spin, not with the go routine, so I can then control it on the outside when I want it to disappear or figure out what I want to do. Because right now the problem is that I keep saying zoom and spin stop ending, but I you know, too much stuff to edit.
This is cool.
Milkman doesn't exist. I say pour the milk. There we go. Appeared on the side. Beautiful. Right? Now I do USSR. Right? And then Milky appeared over there. Perfect. See, things are working how we want now, okay? Right?
So
okay? The problem is that Milky can't disappear. I'm going to get Milky
you gotta
disappear
love
in
it,
a
man.
second. But,
You gotta love Mr. Big and
let's
Bob.
just now...
I think that's great. I think that's great. He's very, very it's almost Primegian. These guys are like, he's like ADD, OCD. kind of like streamers. I'm not that way. I just am not. I'm more chill. It means I don't get as much done probably, but oh well. Who's Chris Fig? Who's that? I'm just screwing around, by the way, in case you're wondering. I'm flickering. Do you think I need to do the sync? I'm still flickering. I was wondering about that. So I was asking people if I was going to do tearing. I know how to do that. I actually wrote a little thing on that actually. So if you're seeing flickering or screen tearing, let me know. VSync to black is the problem. Yeah. So let me go add that right now. NVIDIA drivers. NVIDIA. NeoVim comes on the system by default. Or does it? Yeah. I think it does. There we go. So OpenGL settings, VSync to blank is off. And allow flipping. Yeah, these are the two things. I'm really happy that you can just go in here and turn these off now. Quit. You're going to quit? Yes. I don't know if that's going to fix it right away. I might have to wait for another reboot. Let me know. I'm just kind of having a light start here. Now we're going to get into some Redis stuff. I'll be going for an hour or two. And yeah, I don't know some of these people. Let's see this one. Open link. Fix it right away. Fantastic. I was wondering if that's what it was, because I did notice some flickering the other day, and it wasn't as bad on this machine. When I was on a machine that didn't have as much horsepower, it was really bad. So, ooh, oh, this is great. This is Chris. This is the people they were telling me about. Yeah. I have this little gadget and this gadget. I'm probably going to do this at some point. Oh, I should turn his voice on. Is he speaking in German? Probably is.
Grüßli aus der Schweizli. So, jetzt habe ich schön auf Vorurteile rausgehauen.
Oh, that's awesome. My wife would love this. I got to tell my wife to get into streaming so that she can watch these people.
Grüßli in die Schweizli.
She's been trying to... Hey, there's Julius Urbic. Let's go look at him. What's he doing? You've never successfully used a solder sucker. I said I had one. I didn't say I knew how to use it. So there's Mr. Acerbic. How's he doing? He's a good man. He's always so busy writing code. What's he writing today? Oh, VS Code completion. Yes, I remember it well. Oh, he's got 2 whole people. He's like, who's the other person in my stream? Zero pressure stream. Yay. React Paul, React Flow. This is the kind of stream you need. You need to have zero pressure. You know. Not on mine though. On mine you're gonna have to like work to get points. And that's what I'm doing with my Redis thing. So I want people to get points. I want to give points. I mean it's that pressure? Is it pressure? Are you prepping pressure on my stream? I hope not. Oh, Acerbics pretty awesome. Writing some, what is this? Promises. Is this Rust? No, this is. Oh, this is JavaScript. This is T. No, this is This looks like TypeScript. Could be wrong. What is it? Yep, TypeScript. Ah, got it. Okay. You learned a lot about electronics, building a couple of drones from scratch. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to do that too. So many things I want to do. You know, so many fun things. There's good old Mr. Acerbic. Hey, we're like pumping up his viewers. That's cool. And you know what? I've been meaning to do this. I'm going to add it to my site. I don't have any explanation of why I don't have a subscribe button. I get people continue to ask me like, why don't you have a subscribe button? So I gotta. It's not good enough to put it in the FAQ. Why don't you have a subscribe button? Oh God, shut up. And it's too early for the lights, so I put my hat on. Deal with it. This is always fun though. Should we try? I haven't done this in probably 3 months. This is always fun though. Should we try? I haven't done this in probably 3 months. This is always fun though. Should we try? I haven't done this. Oh, watch my guy's gonna like wave to myself. Because where's the Redis? Where's the Redis? Okay, Redis is coming. I promise. Because where's the Redis? Where's the Redis? Okay, Redis is coming. I promise. Where's the Redis? Where's the Redis? Okay, Redis is coming. I promise. Look at like get all the way down to the tiny guy. That, I mean, come on. Who gets tired of that? That is just like way too much fun. I mean, come on. Who gets tired of that? That is just like way too much fun. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm still not awake yet. There I am. Okay, so I've got to definitely put something else in here. It's the multiverse right there. It totally is. Is it not? What is this? Are you, what is this? Oh, you're a Prime gamer. Oh, okay. All these cool icons that people have that I don't know about. Just perfection. Thanks by the way for that tip. I would give you points. I would. In fact, let's see. This is. Let me write the use case for this really quick. So, and go back to my nice comfy home. This, you know what? I didn't plan on having this be my favorite place to go, even though it's kind of low res and everything. But it is. I really love this particular scene. So, oops. All right, so let me go back to this. So a part of this is some sort of point system. In fact, I probably need a new diagram for this, so let's do that. What can I do? Let's just design it really quick, and then we can talk about how we're going to build it. It's always, there's probably a better way to do that. Let's do this. So, yeah, I can just do this, I think. There. All right. So, God, I love draw.io, diagramming, whatever. I call it draw.io still. They call it diagrams.net. It's a little bit too big though, so let's make it small so I can see you guys chatting at me. And what else? So, you have no idea how long it took me to figure out that sync thing the first time I started streaming. I mean, I must have researched it for it felt like 4 hours. All right, so this particular part of the puzzle goes right to Redis, and I guess a lot of the stuff I'm just going to be deleting, so don't really need it. I'm not saving. Okay, so first of all, we're not saving any kind of logs. So that's not what this is about. This is more about, finding a way. I need to, where do I put it? I wonder if I should put it under the live project. I think I should, because it's supposed to be like a single interface to the whole thing. Okay, so let's do this. Down in to-dos, we got that at point systems. I'm just going to write up some use cases or user stories, whatever you want to call. Hey, how's it going, Peter? What do you guys prefer, user stories or use cases? Do you know what I'm talking about? This is like a thing in tech. I'm gonna go research this. What should I use? Use cases or user stories. It's like everybody has all their fancy project words, and you know what I'm saying, it's kind of annoying. But I'm using this for education. You prefer user stories? Use case means old. I just said that. And too many docs. Yes, you got the prerequisite doc. Well, there. So maybe someone's been educated. So in case you don't know what those things are, hi Jasper. Welcome, by the way. So these, well, let's just read it. Shall we read it from the amazing YouTube? Or from the amazing Wikipedia or something? I'm just going to net it out for you. So all it is a description of how your thing works in terms of the user, and that's the number one thing. So user-driven development is the way to go. It's the way to go, and stuff that sucks is not made this way. So that reminds me of stuff that sucks. I have to call my power company because this is a funny little story of an example of somebody who didn't follow use case user-centric design. They made all the pieces, but they never had anybody, at least sufficiently, test all the pieces interacting with each other. And that's what user stories do, is they kind of give you this overarching approach to the entire project that anybody can understand. And that use cases were a little bit, you almost had to kind of learn a language about use cases. They're kind of from the land of UML, Unified Modeling Language, which was part of the 90s craziness. And so user story is just a description of how the system works from the user's perspective, the end. And you got to be careful, because when you're writing one, you don't want to write specifics about how it's implemented. And that's very hard for engineers. Like, well, and then it's going to talk to a Redis database, and it's no implementation details. I just want you to tell us what usability, what usefulness, what's functionality, what are you providing? User story, the what, not the how, right? That's a perfect way to put it. It's a hot chocolate day here. It really is. Hi, Johnny. And how do I say that? Preox? So if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you've never heard about it before, that's what it is. So hopefully that's enough. We're just making a little inside joke about, the how, not the no. You really did. The what, not the how. Sorry, dyslexic. So the inside joke we were making, just so you get it. By the way, one of the main goals of this stream is so that a bunch of us techies who've been around a while, as well as some of us young techies, can decode the cultural lingo and jokes, so that you can, fit in. I'm kind of, I'm older, so there's a lot of inside jokes now that I don't get, because they're lower, and they're on about stuff that's that I don't know. Very bad at including the how in all my stories. Right, drives my PO up the wall. Yep, there you go. So that sounds like a typical engineer. And if you want to get an example of this, any Star Trek. So the engineers, whenever the engineers are in a board, or like a meeting with, like, they got the security people and they got the captain, they got everybody all together, right? And they're all smart, but when the engineers start geeking out, there's a couple times when Belana Torres, she's my favorite engineer, she keeps going crazy the over-engineering is for study Kubernetes or for some cluster environment. What are you talking about? This is a different video that you're talking about. We're just going to do Redis here. We're just, well, specifically, it's to get the certified Kubernetes application developer certificate. And I have a little tangent on that too that I want to talk about, but I don't want to go off on it. So just in case, I should probably mention it though. So today I got in my email. I'm going to go down this thing. So let's wrap up the user state. So use cases are the old school way of doing it, and it required some more formal documentation. You had to have certain sections in a certain way. And people were like, I don't know who, but they said, that's even too much. We just need somebody to write a story, just in your own words, tell me how the system works, very, very easy, and get all the other crap out of there. And so the term use case comes from, the 90s, and that's why it kind of dates you if you use the term use case, even though I still think it has some relevance because it is a little bit more precise about how it writes things out. So I actually happen to have this up, so I wanted to show you this. I have nothing to do with the Linux Foundation. At one point I started doing the introduction to Linux. I was going to do a workthrough of the whole thing, and I abandoned it. Not because of it's free, by the way. The intro to Linux is free. The course is free. The test is $300. This thing was just announced. So this particular exam was just announced, the LFCA, but it doesn't have an associated course yet. It was just announced today. So, it was announced earlier, but today it was actually released. And so what I just want to talk about it and talk about some of the things here. Nothing I'm doing here is wrong. And I do want to talk about one reason that I may or may not get this or recommended. I don't know. Again, it comes back to the certification, thing. So Linux operating systems, file management commands, system commands, blah, blah, blah. You can go look. This is designed to make you a baseline Linux associate. And that does not mean that you're a baseline Linux user, as far as I can tell, particularly because it has you using, DevOps stuff and network things. And if you're going to be in IT, you should know that anyway. But if you just want to get certified in how to use Linux, Lpic Essentials is probably the thing to get from LPIC. If you're going to certify. And I've made a whole video on why certify. You can go find that. I'm not particularly a fan of certification just because, unless you need it. And I had to do this whole tirade because I have to explain why I'm probably going to go for the certified Kubernetes application developer. And the reason for that is because if you're trying to break into the industry or you're returning to corporate America, or you want to be a consultant of some kind, then having as many credentials as possible is good, even though you don't need them to prove you know what you're doing. And there's been a few people who've got the certified Kubernetes application developer who've dropped by the chat in here. But that's why. So I want to believe that the Linux Foundation is doing the right thing. They are definitely run by corporations who are interested in making money and which is a little bit ironic for a Linux Foundation. They definitely are into money, and one of the ways I know that is because they're not considering any sort of open certification. And so in January or February of this year, a bunch of us in the mentoring community started brainstorming, and we actually came up with this idea of an open credential, which would open source the credentialing of the world in a way that would sustain itself without any particular organization or centralized organization doing it. And I still want to write that up and talk about doing that. And I probably, I believe it's one of the most important ways, because then you can take all those skills and organize them and decide what ones you want to work on, and then have your peers validate that you know what you're doing, and have your peers in the industry create fork. It basically uses the idea of an open credential is that you manage the credential just like any software. It's open, it can be forked, it's very specific in the code that it has in it. The code that's in it is the listing of the things that you need to know and the material that it would be tested on if you were to test yourself. But the one thing that makes open credentialing 100% different from any credentialing system that exists is there's no set overarching examination body that's making money off of it. So there's nothing wrong with making money off of preparing you for an open credential, but ultimately the person who says that you have the credential is you. And it's up to you to prove that you have the credential to yourself and to everyone else to whom you would submit the credential. So, you're talking about user stories. I'll talk about that in a second. So that's the idea of an open credential. I really wish that the industry would adopt it. I kind of want to try it and get it going, and I would love to even write a book on it. All of this just makes me feel like I need to have the knowledge net done and a bunch of other things. And I'll talk about it in a second, Brad. So the credentialing is, so the reason I'm telling you that is because when I read the confidentiality agreement here from the Linux Foundation, I just lost all the wind in my sails to support this. In fact, so much so, I considered not even going for the, and I think I probably overreacted, so don't anybody make the same judgment that I did off the cuff, but I can tell you, this really rubbed me the wrong way. For an open source organization, for an organization that's supposed to be, promoting open source, and free software and this, free exchange of ideas and all this stuff, to read this, 15-page legal document, which I read all of it, and to come away thinking, oh my God, if I take this test and talk about these things on YouTube in a particular way that happens to use the same terminology, they could sue me. I was like, there's nothing open source about that. There's nothing open about that. And I'm kind of an old school Linux, open guy. And so when I start reading this level of legalese around anything, it freaks me out. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. I'm not saying, it's bad even. I'm just saying my initial reaction to reading this, and you can make your own judgments, and no event liability, blah, blah, blah. So here's the one that really makes me cringe. Not to mention the fact that you have to have a camera, you can't look at anything, your desk got to be, this is standard stuff for remote certification. It's better than going into a testing center and having Pearson own the world. So I agree with it in that terms. I promise we'll get back to Reddit, but exam misconduct. So here we go. Professional code of conduct, perform your duties well, blah, blah, blah. Statement on discretionary special needs, accuracy of the process, failing to the, it's just really draconian. You can tell IBM was involved. So, policy of termination, without warning, candidate refuses to comply with the proctor request. It's obviously they have to have this, but God, it just makes me just go crazy. If somebody's taken this test, I'd love to talk to them about how they responded to it. Candidate's not allowed to communicate. A lot of this stuff is basic, but the stuff that freaked me out is right here. Look at this. In some countries, you can't take it at all. It's like, why would you ban certain countries? Whatever. Where is it? Okay, so you have to give them all this photographic ID, and I get why they have to do that, because they've had people, taking the test for other people. That's been a problem for a long time. There's always somebody who's going to try to get away with something, and they're going to screw the whole system up for everybody. And by the way, open credentialing is based on trust. It promotes trust over this antagonistic relationship. And when you have an antagonistic relationship between anything, and most of our public school system is teacher versus student, you have to put in a lot more work, because you have to put in systems. It's like I talked about skill bucks that somebody took advantage of, had to get rid of, because you have to put in a lot more to protect against the bad people who are going to try to break the system. But if your whole system is based on trust and building trust, then and it's based on ring of trust, in other words, this person is trustworthy and 30 other people say they're trustworthy, then you don't have to mess around with all the other stuff. And if you look at some of the most successful universities, Davidson College is up the street, and they have this sort of thing. They just trust people, and it keeps them from having to do expensive proctoring and stuff. And are there bad apples who are going to take advantage of it? Absolutely. But the whole system is built on trust, and it promotes trust as opposed to promoting suspicion. And so this entire, if you do this and this and this, you're going to go, we're going to get you. It's this adversarial, fear-based thing, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work because you get people that are going to violate the system anyway, and then you get other people who are going to be overly burdened by it, and your whole system is going to cost more and take more time because you got to put all these extra things in. So basically, I guess I skipped over it, but here we go. Subject matter for certification. You are prohibited from disclosing, publishing, reproducing, or transmitting an exam course. That makes sense. This is another reason that adversarial kind of, us exams in general are screwed up. So because you have to keep it secret, you have to make a new one, you have to keep it locked up in secret. Whereas if you're using trust, then you give them a list of things they need to know. You even give them the test questions. You say, okay, could you answer these test questions? And they say absolutely, and they can prepare and they can do those things, and then you can leave. It's a bit between you and who's ever going to depend on that trust to establish whether you have done it. And going and getting a certificate and having it stamped by there's still nothing wrong with people making money on certifying that your knowledge of a particular open credential. The difference is that the people who are making up self-assessments are answering to you, not to the people, the companies and people that are gonna trust you. And so the problem with our whole credentialing system right now is it caters to the people who are going to hire you. It's not there for you. And in an open credential system, the entire system would be based on your needs as somebody who's going to be employed, not so much to make you take advantage of everybody else, but in so much as it's adapting to help you best prepare and best assess yourself. And then those people who are assessing you, who stamp you, so if you give yourself an open credential and you don't feel good enough about how much trust that can build for somebody else because you just gave it to yourself, you can go to hired professional mentors and hired professional organizations and say, okay, I need further certification, or from you, that I meet the needs, that I have fulfilled this open credential, and then they can provide their extra means to do that. But the credential itself is up to you, and it's very detailed, and it says what skills you need to know, and then you can, if you just sign off on your own, you can have 20 other people sign it. If you can establish trust on your own, and then you don't need to pay the $300 for an exam. You also don't need to worry about litigation coming against you because you have violated the terms of somebody. And by the way, you call the shots. The person who's doing the certification calls all the shots because they can say to, I'm going off on this, but they can say to the person who's, they're going to. So let's say you don't feel comfortable doing your own certification. You're like, okay, I'm going to pay you to certify me. But I'm not paying you to tell me that I got it right. And because the whole system is based on trust, if an organization, rubber stamps your credentials, they'll be called out for it by the industry, because the industry will start to see that they're getting black eyes because they're hiring people who don't meet it, even though they gave them the rubber stamp. And the whole system is built on trust and reputation, not what can I get away with and how can I lock this down. And that is what's killing all of our accreditation kind of systems, is because we have this, we just have this antagonistic relationship, and it sucks. So here's another thing: you are expressly prohibited from disclosing blah blah blah. You can't have worksheets, diagrams, computations, length or number of exam segments, answers, worksheets, or any communication, including oral communication, regarding or related to the exam known collectively as confidential information, in whole or in part, in any form or by any means, oral, written, electronic, or mechanical, for any purpose. That is a fucking broad legal definition of what you can talk about. And that, for a live streamer like me, that paragraph makes me never want to sign this thing ever in my life, because this gives them carte blanche to come after me about anything that they feel and that they can prove in a court of law with all their money, and I have no money, and say, so if I come on a stream, and this is a problem with NDAs too. I once asked, there's a group of young people who wanted me to see their cool projects, and I said, great, and I went in, and the first thing they did was, because they're about to ready to launch, and the first thing they handed me was an NDA. and a confidentiality and a thing like that. And I was like, it was a non-compete. They handed me an NDA and a non-compete because they didn't want to show me their top secret thing. They wanted to get my opinion on it before they went public with it. But they showed it to me, and then they did show it to me. They came to me and they handed me this piece of paper right at the beginning. And I read through it and I said, wait a second. This says here that I can't, so what if, and I asked them the question, I said, what if I've already had your idea? What if somebody's already had our idea? And what if I've already done any of this? What's to keep, and I said, look guys, I know you mean well, but, and they were guys, what's to stop you from coming after me because something I am working on in open source land, you don't know me, ends up becoming popular and more popular than your product, and you fail. And I didn't say that, but but that's the issue, right? So what happens if I do something and then they come after me and then they're like, well, you saw that in my presentation. I said, you're absolutely right. I did say it in a presentation. And you signed a thing saying you were never going to make anything or disclose anything related to this presentation. I say, yeah, but, and they don't care at that point. So, yeah, I did. You're right. I did. I happen to know about it way ahead of that. And they go, well, we don't think you did. We think you moved forward with your idea because you saw our presentation. And now it's up to me. The burden of proof is on me to prove that I didn't steal their idea. And now I'm in a court against somebody who has money as an engineer trying to prove that my ideas are my own. And that just sucks. So I when I see this kind of legalese in anything, I run screaming because it's like, I don't want to risk it. And I've seen developers ruin their careers because they looked at the wrong open source code and they were on a private project. This is one of the scariest things about going back to work for corporate America. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm not afraid of it. I understand it's there, but I am willing to accept it. But it's still scary, because as engineers, you're the bottom of the barrel. I don't care about you. They need your skills. That's it. And I made software for IBM that made millions of dollars in auditing and services through IBM Global Services. Made millions of dollars. Never got a cent of that. It doesn't matter. I was agreement. But when I see this, it says here, what if I accidentally refer to the netstat command? Right? There's a good chance netstat's on the quiz, right? Computations, diagrams, it doesn't say commands and, So let's say I come up with a bunch of questions on my own to challenge yourself. And one of those questions, or 2 or 10, is really close to this. What's even worse is after I've taken the test, I don't even know I know that most of the stuff I would, well, yeah, it's about netstat. That's the only way to ask that question. So then what? Right? So then is my question of that, look, are these people going to come after me because I'm making a video? I actually asked the Linux Foundation. They were very, very helpful. They answered me right away when I did, because I started streaming about the introduction to Linux, and nowhere on any of the site, on edX it's the same thing, did it say that it was Creative Commons. And so I asked a question in the forum. In fact, I asked the first question in the forum for the international introduction. I said, is this material copyright? Can I stream this while I'm doing it? And somebody very kindly answered right away, it says all Creative Commons. You're totally welcome to do whatever you want with the stream and to remix it and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, awesome. Okay, that's great. But now I'm reading this confidentiality agreement for this specific exam, and this is like IT associate. The reason this concerns me for this particular certificate is because it's such a broad certificate. Do you know what I mean? I mean, this is like basic stuff that everybody needs to know. So the chance of you having, this is the one that's free, by the way, Intro to Linux. So this one after this. So the possibility of me already having material, because I've got, at this point, like 1,500 nodes or so, I would say 800 from one and about 500-600 from another one. I still have to put those all in my database, my knowledge base, move them over. They're all over the place. And any of that data could conflict with this. And then because I took the test and I'm also a mentor, I'm in competition, and I'm tiny, but I could still become a target. And so I don't. Anyway, I know I'm probably just being paranoid. It's probably nothing to do with that. But the whole point is that if it's an open source organization, why aren't they thinking about more open methods of they're focused on making money through certification, and this is the single greatest takeaway that I have from this. So after I'm getting all excited and reading, drinking my coffee and reading this thing, I'm reading through it. I'm like, oh great, this is really awesome. I can help people out, and here's somebody else's idea of the path to learn Linux. I have my own idea of what that is, and I've shared it with lots of people successfully, and so, but maybe they have something in there. Let's compare notes and see. I'm thinking like this spirit of open camaraderie, and I'm looking through the thing, and then I come to the legal thing, and then my blood just stops. I'm like, wait a second, I don't want to look any further at anything on this list. And another thing that really worried me is I went to the like Clementino, and so he's having fun. It's him, yes. He's like, I actually am on the stream. So there was the other thing that I have to add to this. I'm getting a little bit hot actually. So the other thing I have to add to this is that when I went to go through the Kubernetes certified Kubernetes guy exam, that as I was reading through that, there's some stuff in there that was similar, but and I it said free curriculum. They said free curriculum, and I was like, okay, cool. So I went to the free curriculum page. I think I still have it up actually. And the free curriculum is a one-page PDF of the topics that they're going to cover. That's it. It was just really general. It doesn't even say what commands they're going to copy. And then I'm starting to get worried because the LPIC stuff has a foundation that works on the requirements and lists them in exhaustive detail. So I wasn't planning on going down this path this morning, guys, but I'm doing it anyway. So there, LPIC Essentials exam. So they have an entire Wikipedia dedicated to creating the topics, very detailed topics, as well as the training material to pass their exams and stuff. This is a true open organization. I still think they are for profit. I don't know. I'd have to look that up. But now I'm looking at, you still have to go to the view centers to take the tests and stuff. Because I think the reason for that is because it is an organization that's got a little bit more, if you're an open source organization, you're a community that's coming up with all this stuff, you have to pay somebody to deliver on the exam if somebody chooses to take the exam. This stops short of being an open credential, but all the materials are open. And so instead of like a one-page, like overarching, really nebulous overview of the percentages that are going to be on the thing and calling that a curriculum, that's not the definition of curriculum, by the way, Linux Foundation. And then you hear, and you can go follow this one. So this one tells you the percent. It tells you what's going to be there. And when you go on the exam objectives and you click here, you still have to purchase a voucher, and unfortunately you have to go to Pearson for these kind of things. But look at these. Look at this breakdown. Okay, so compare this breakdown to, I should probably rename this video before I post it, at least a segment of it. So compare this breakdown. This has got, it tells you what the weight is, distributed systems. It tells you the specific technologies. And you can almost use this. I actually send this to people all the time as a guide of specific topics to study because it's very fleshed out. And even more than this, they actually have a wiki you can go to that talks about all these topics. Now, the biggest problem with that is that it's out of date. And I've talked about that before, because it can't keep up. And because why? Because there's probably not as much money in it for the community to make anything that's really, really open source. Some of it lags behind because there's no money backing it, and therefore there's no pressure for it to be good or better. Now, the thing that's really great about this is it tells you what commands to cover, right? So compare that to the Linux Foundation's idea of what you need to learn. This is all you're ever going to see from them about what you should learn. All right. This is it. This is all you're going to see. And you tell me which one, creates a more warm, fuzzy feeling. the one that's hiding all the details from you, expecting you to learn them and to pay for their course so that you can, they don't have one, but to pay for the course so you can get it, understand it, or the organization that's extremely open with the specific details of every command that's going to be on there. To the point where they actually have .3, .4 that's put together. Now, this when you put this much detail on a thing, you're automatically, the downside is you're going to be out of date, right? So, but it gives you all the weighted thing. It breaks it all down. Sorry, but what's with the cap? The cap is because my eyes hurt, and it's early morning, and it also protects my ears. This part protects my ears, and I like wearing hats. Deal with it. All right, so you're talking about the John Deere? No, that's just my, I'm being ironical. I like John Deere. It's fun to drive. Have you ever driven a John Deere? They're fun. Yeah. Anyway, no, it's not. I probably should have hats that are more symbolic. There's not. This is completely random. So that's just the end of my rant. Let me just, before I end my rant on Linux and get back and take a break. How's it going? So the last one I want to show, there's one I came up with. So here it is. This the Cloud Native Foundation. I love Gentoo. Yeah. So this is look at this. This says this is the curriculum for the cloud. This is a certification I think I want to get, but I'm having second thoughts now. And so the CCAD, but this is it. This is all you see. I'm going to show you. It's going to blind you. Sorry. Where is the CCAD? So this is the entire certificate. It's like this big fan. This is one way you can be sure to be afraid of something. If they put more attention on the graphics and font picks and logos than the content. And, the Linux LPIC stuff is like really boring, but it's got, more content. Hey, Spacianot. So then you go down here, it says, so the CAD curriculum, 13% core concepts. It's like you made an entire PDF just to show us what's going to be on this test, this breakdown. Really? Okay. The end. In fact, when I got to this page, I was like WTFing. Because I was like, wait, you're telling me that's your curriculum? Compare, as well, after your last video, there was an issue that the GitHub repo was basically says, yeah, it's like, there is actually an issue on this. Yeah, and then you go here, and you go to the exam here, and you're looking at this, okay? And this is just the Essentials exam. Yeah. I look old and young at the same time. Well, thank you. So here we have this Essentials exam. Yeah, $300 to take the course and then $300 to take the test. Okay, so that's a $600 exam. And not everybody can do this. This is another reason I want to do open credentialing. Because open credentialing suits the needs of the world. It helps people, and this is for the Linux exam. The Linux Essentials exam is $90. Okay, the Linux Essentials is $90, and because I have a 15-year-old who got it, and it includes, look, it's got old stuff here. Okay, this is not getting updated, and I think it's unfortunate because I think the LPIC is starting to take a hit from the Linux Foundation. And if you look who's in the Linux Foundation, IBM, Google, Microsoft, all these really big corporations are trying. You know what? I'm just going to say it. I'm going to cut to the chase. Since the Linux Foundation was founded, there's been a lot of wondering what's going on with all of these really big corporate interests starting a Linux Foundation and pretty much starting to rule the universe of Linux. And there's been a lot of old school Linux people who are like, oh my God. Yeah, I was surprised about how much continuing education costs. So, and until today, I would have said, well, they're trying to do their best. They're doing good things. And now I'm inclined to believe the sort of negativity around the Linux Foundation, which says this is a bunch of corporate interests coming together to control Linux because they missed the boat and they called it stupid things and they didn't use it. Google didn't, but and all of a sudden everybody says, oh, Linux is the way, we have to control it. And so, Windows is on track to put Linux as their new core operating system, completely replacing their other kernel. They're on track to do that. There's no proof that they're going to do that. Apple has been Unix based inside since the beginning, so it's a strong interest. Google is all, cloud native is all Linux. Everything is all Linux. And Amazon's even got their own fucking version of Linux. So, and then you have the Linux Foundation that gets created. And now they have all of these certifications and stuff, and there's lots of price tags in there, and there's lots of money, and it makes corporate types feel really comfortable because they're used to certifications, and frankly, it covers their ass, because if somebody gets a certification, which is hard, I'm not saying it's not, it's one more thing that they can say, well, he said he had a certificate and he could do it. And if you don't do it, it's not his fault anymore, or her fault, right? So, but the Linux Professional Institute, yes, they are a for-money institution, but they seem to have been more open from the very beginning. The fact that they have a wiki that goes through, I haven't linked to it yet, but they have a wiki that goes through all the preparation materials, which is incomplete. The fact that they have so many details here, and all of these things to me are starting to add up now, and I'm starting to see that the Linux Foundation is making a hell of a lot of money right now, and they are doing good things. Obviously, they're doing some really great things. The leader of their education is a PhD scientist. He's really an amazing guy from what I can read about him. I'm not personally attacking anybody or any, or even the thing. OpenStack is under there. So, but the thing that concerns me is that all of these really big companies are now dominating the Linux Foundation. They're starting to put everything under the Linux Foundation, and I'm starting to join in the thought that this is just another ploy for control, and even if they don't mean it to be, and they're doing their best to do what's good for the world, they're doing it according to what they think is good for the world. And to them, what's good for the world is millions of programmers and developers and cloud native specialists who have to every 3 years pay $600 or $300 for an exam and $300 for another course. So if I was going to so this is why I hate the certification bracket, because if you're going to buy into this idea, then if you're going to get a cloud native certificate or any of them, I mean, ideally you would have several of them. There's like 3 or 4. You're talking about spending $3,000 every 3 years at least. Okay. Now you should spend money anyway, but there's the whole idea of open source is promoting, the most autodidactic core principles are open. It's like you should be able to teach for yourself. We should be funded by these large organizations, and we should be providing free material to the world, just like Linux was provided for free to the world, so that we can progress our interests. We have common interests with people who can't pay $300. For you to say that you are an open organization and you're going to charge $300 American dollars for an exam of basic IT associate stuff, because why? Because you want somebody to be able to sign off on your skills when you can prove your skills yourself. You just need to learn to be trusted. So there's several things that I've even kind of talked to through a conclusion here. One of them is that this idea of closed certification is promoting the idea to those who would hire us to do these things, that it's promoting FUD in those people. It's like, if you hire someone who does not have it's in their marketing interest to say these things to big organizations. If you do not trust us to certify your people, you're going to end up in trouble. And that line of thinking is exactly the same thinking that Pearson did for right to repair. They said they sued people, and they said to the at the state level, they said nobody in our country or in this community, in that particular community, and thank God they lost. Nobody should have the ability to repair their own electronics. And they actively did that. And they said the only people who should be able to repair these products are people who have passed our test. And they believe it. They truly believe that. And it's completely and totally against, but when you see an organization like the Linux Foundation saying, marketing the idea, not really they're kind of soft pedaling this idea, but they're like, if you don't get certified, here's an easy way for you to prove that you can be trusted. And I buy into that. I do. And then you can tell the other organization, here's an easy way for you to be sure that you get good people. And I think that's just promoting lazy hiring practices personally, because, but on that flip side of this, we do need to put some formality and some organization around these skills that we need to learn. And God knows that's true, because a lot of times we don't know what the best things are to even learn for a given thing. So my conclusion is I don't know. I'm hesitant. I'm a little dubious on this particular point. Probably not related, but when looking at the Linux kernel change logs, I feel it very dominated by the big guys. Yes. And the kernel, that's really cool. I almost don't want to look at it right now. I have it in my list of my chat history. I'll come back. So I'm not against the big guys getting involved with Linux. I think it's fantastic. But I am concerned that the level of control that they're starting to exert on the whole system is completely against the original motivations that Stallman started and that Torvalds continued with open software, with free software. We don't even call it free. This is, I'm going to agree with Stallman on this particular point. Stallman gets really bent out of shape when people call stuff open source, because you're like, oh, that's just the corporate, maligning of the term free software, so that you get it for free and you don't have to do anything. In fact, the corporate interests are really great. They really love these permissive licenses. Oh my God, they're eating the world up, right? You're not a true, free software open source person. You're not a good person unless you're okay with Apache 2 or MIT or BSD. If you still believe in GPL 2 or 3, and I have problems with 3, but if you still believe in GPL 2, then oh yeah, I don't want to touch your software. I don't want anything to do with that as an organization. Because why? Because it's too risky, because they can't rape you like Apple has done to the BSD stuff. And I don't know. I'm at a juncture here where I have to make some decisions for myself, and one of those is, do I buy into the system in order to get what I want, which is, a job doing Go coding as a certified Kubernetes application developer, or do I find ways to prove my skills other ways, which has been fine for my whole career. I've got a Russian major. That's my only official credential. And I've been Nike's webmaster, for God's sake. I know that I can prove my skills. But I think it's this, please explain a little bit more. Oh, I can't get into that one. Just go, okay, so I'll give you one sentence on the Apple BSD thing, okay? So, well, not one sentence. The overview, I'll give you the short paragraph. Sorry, my mustache is a little itchy. And this is why I'm, you have to study the whole history of it. So I'll give you the short version of history. What time is it? I got to give myself a timestamp. It's 1:25. All right, so Steve Jobs gets kicked out of Apple. He doesn't know what to do. He's, for reasons that were justified, by the way, he was wasting money. And so he doesn't know what to do. So he says, God, he looks around just like Steve Jobs does, and he says, what can I embrace and dominate and steal? Those are his words. And I have his book right here. It's pretty interesting. And so everybody's about graphics, 3D graphics. Silicon graphics is all the rage. workstations are all the rage. PCs are kind of has been, yeah, they're a thing, but it's all about the workstation, the high power Unix workstation, Silicon Graphics, SGI, and all that. Everything's all pastel and everything. It's like, we need to make one of those. So he says, we need to get into this business. And he did two things. He started Pixar, which became, Pixar, right? And he said, I'm going to get into the business of making workstations because they're more powerful. It's where the future is. And they're using this Unix operating system. We don't have to run our own operating system. So he did that. He was like, well, what are they running? He goes, where can I get a free one? Because I can't run Solaris, and I don't want to make my own. What was it? SGI Linux? I don't even remember what was on there. Do you guys remember? So he's like, well, we need a good version of. In order to have a workstation, you have to have Unix. So he looks around and says, where can I steal Unix? And because back then AT&T Linux was like $3,000 a seat. And these are all the predecessors of Linux. And so then he sees, oh, Berkeley. Yeah, Berkeley's got, this BSD over here. And so he sees this free, completely and totally free operating system with one of the most permissive licenses ever made. That means that if you want it, first of all, yeah. It's a long story. You had to pay $3,000 to use Unix, to install AT&T proprietary Unix. This is why Linux became a thing, because Unix was so wildly expensive. I mean, it was insane how expensive. It was only meant for high-end engineers and scientists, and so a bunch of universities couldn't pay that money, so they started developing their own Unix, and that's where Minix came from, which was what Linus Torvalds' professor created, and then Linus Torvalds' professor said, literally, your Minix sucks, I'm going to do better, and he said that, by the way, in not so many words, and then he made his own. And so Linux came, there was no internet, so they didn't know about each other. Meanwhile, Berkeley's over here trying to figure stuff out. They want their own mainframe. They want to be able to move around, play around with it. And they're sick of, bowing down to AT&T for grants and stuff to be able to use Unix. So they said, we're going to make our own. So they made Berkeley Systems Development. They made BSD Linux. I'm paraphrasing wildly here, but that's what they did. So, and so they had this thing they were running. It was really popular with all the university people. It was too powerful to run on most PCs at the time, but you could make workstations with it. So you could make your own, and you didn't have to pay the thousands of dollars. I think it was $8,000 to $10,000 for a Silicon Graphics workstation. You didn't have to, they were doing all the 3D stuff for for stuff like Pixar. So Jobs is all like, how can I get this down to the level where people can buy it and everything? And so number one, he saw the need for workstations, not to use personal computers anymore. Number two, he looked for an operating system that could do it all, and he was looking at what they were using, and it was Unix based, and so he stole BSD. He didn't steal it because it was free, and the license was permissive. And he was like, where does it say in the license that I have to tell anybody anything about this? He said, wait, it doesn't say anything here. I don't have to pay anything. You mean I can change it, and I don't have to tell anybody how I changed it? Awesome. So he took that and put that inside of Next computers, and you can go look them up. So Next computers, they were all the rage. He did just like the iPhone, right? He basically took this SGI computer, made it on BSD, made it really snazzy, had a really great interface, of course, because he'd already gone through all that with the first version of the Mac, and put it in a cube, called it a Next Cube, had a really sexy out thing on it, and everybody wanted one. It blew up. But it was expensive, and so people were still buying SGIs and stuff. But having a Next Cube, and you can go look them up, was a mark of fame back then if you had one. And then what? Then he's like wildly successful. Meanwhile, Apple is tanking. Gamilio is running the place, and they're as Jim Cantrell says, Jim Cantrell says he remembers Brian Cantrell remembers a time when Gil Amelio was running it, and everybody was eyeing Apple for the real estate because they were about to go under. And so they begged Steve Jobs to come back. And Steve Jobs said, okay, fine, I'll come back. And I'm successful. I rock. He actually went through a serious depression, and then he was back to his normal self. And then they pulled him in, and he said, fine, but if I come back, I get carte blanche here, and we're going to bring my operating system. And so he came back, and since that day, which I didn't know for like 5 years after that. Somebody told me, he goes, will you help us get Macs for our team at IBM? And I was like, what? And I'm like, no, I use Linux. And he goes, you know it's Unix under the hood, right? And I went, no. When did that happen? And so then I looked into it and found out this whole story. So from that point on, the internal operating system for Mac, so they ported Cocoa and a bunch of other front end stuff. They're basically doing what Windows is doing now. They made the underlying kernel BSD, which they then renamed. Instead of calling it BSD anymore, they renamed their kernel Darwin, as in this is the next evolution. This is blah 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 from BSD. It's really, really kind of arrogant of them to do that, because this is the best. This is the best part. So as soon as they get this system, they've given it away and they've adopted it all. They start to sell tons of them. In fact, I think you could trace this serious growth of Macs with the developer community to that time, because now it had a seriously powerful command line interface. It had, people were writing code. It was just even way before even, the Ruby phase, but the Ruby thing played into that. So there was a huge resurgence in terminal programming and everything, because it was so powerful under the hood, because it was Unix, for God's sake. It was based on sound principles. It wasn't based on the other shit that they had before. And so then they had all the prettiness of Mac on the top, plus it had all the power of Unix inside. And that made Mac, that's what I think, that's what really pushed in the consumer market apps to be on every serious developer's computer. And Windows was just struggling like crazy. They were still, forcing you to use really bloated IDEs and stuff like that. Their command line sucked. It still sucked until like 2018. And then basically Windows has basically just had a moment. Win 10 is getting really bad. I log in 1.3, yeah. System pop-ups to log in. That's not cool. So here's the real kicker, though. In all of this, in all, well, PowerShell, I mean, they were just trying to follow Apple all along the way. But here's where BSD and permissive licenses really become problematic, and I am totally torn on this topic. When's the last time, if you've used a Mac, when's the last time when you started your Mac, you've seen anything that relates to a disclosure about the BSD license? I'm going to drink my coffee. Anybody? Anybody ever seen any reference anywhere in any of the Mac operating system that suggests that the underlying operating system is 90% BSD? Yeah, a lot of people don't. It's super clean. So what happened is that Mac in there, it doesn't exist. Right. Yep. So the moral of this story, unfortunately, is that if you have enough power and you have enough influence and you have convinced people that subtle, I mean, who wants to fucking see a license every time pop up in their face? Nobody wants to see that. I'm sure Jobs was like, no, we are not flashing a pop-up every time they log in, telling them that this is a Linux system, this is a BSD Unix system underneath. We are not doing that. It's too annoying to the user experience. So every single Apple product that uses Darwin currently is in violation of the law on the BSD, according to the BSD license, and no one's tested it in court. And if they did, they'd get destroyed. That's what happens when you have a permissive license. Nobody even knows. You go to the average, highly technical person who knows about the command line and uses it every day, and you ask them, what is the operating system in there? They say, oh, it's Darwin, of course. They don't even know it's BSD anymore. You have highly technical people who have no idea they're using computers that are built on open source software. And that pisses me off. And I'm throwing pencils and stuff now because now I just get so pissed. This story pisses me off every time I tell it. Because, this is where Stallman was absolutely right. And you can disagree with him on other points. And But his cynicism about what would happen if we didn't put legal protections in place against these organizations to do the right thing was absolutely dead on. Every single thing that he predicted they have done. Every single thing. And now they're all of a sudden seeing that all this software is really awesome. And so you get the Linux Foundation, which is coming along and puts a big old Linux in the name, but under the hood, they're making money on testing and they're pushing it in corporations and they're getting people and they're influencing the kernel and where it goes so they can make their operating systems built on Linux at Microsoft and make money off of this thing that was built on the backs of open source software coders who can't pay their rent or don't have insurance like me. We don't see a dime of it, because we've done all of our contributions, and so you can't imagine the thousands and thousands of hours. It's true though, and this is kind of unfair, so I need to say this. It's true though that most of the contributions to the Linux kernel and the Linux and stuff these days is coming from companies who are backing engineers to do it, and I think that's a good thing. So I'm not gonna rip on that too much, because what's finally happened is we figured out the ecosystem for this. The ecosystem for this is that you can be an engineer and you can have insurance and you can get paid and support your kids and everything and work for a company, and that company can pay you to do that for an open source project. And IBM has done that, Microsoft's doing it now, Amazon's done it, and that's where the Linux Foundation is coming from. Is it's coming from these people who, Canonical. But then, other bad things happen too. So this is an interesting, I could talk about this forever. I'm supposed to be doing Redis. So the people love to bag on systemd, right? And where did systemd come from? So systemd, whether you agree with it or not, emerged from the need for a more centralized, core init1 kind of thing. And that need, you could argue, came about through the enterprise. In fact, the core engineer, if I remember right, he came from Red Hat. And so he was creating things in the operating system in Linux that got legs and became important, that had primarily corporate interests at heart, as opposed to individuals and do whatever. Now, I happen to think it's not as bad as people make it out to be. That's fine. It's a very, very controversial topic and I want to talk about it. But the point is that these engineers who are employed by large companies to support open source are being paid to make things and promote things in the kernel that are at the best interests of the corporation and not necessarily everyone. And so you're starting to see things that corporations want showing up in the kernel. And you could argue that systemd was one of those things. And I'm not against it. I think it is needed. I think Linux does need to get, big, and it has gotten big. So, but it's a serious, interesting topic because and this all came about because this little thing that I wanted to show, people do share that sentiment. It also pushed people to create their own flavors of Linux to serve the community. And thank God we can do that, right? I think that's where Arch came from for sure. And I know Debian is like that, and BSD is getting really popular again. The ironic thing about BSD getting popular is because of its permissive license, you're just feeding in the corporations more. So, and that's fine, But how's it going? So, just read about how secure they are, but of course they're very powerful, and you want to be careful. Make sure you know what you're doing, right? OpenBSD is the thing. Yes, it's difficult to install. It doesn't have networking. And so this is why it's not a cut and dry black and white issue. This is the Linux had death threats. Yeah, he definitely did. So this is a really seriously complicated issue because it's not just simply systemd is bad. Anybody who develops for corporations are bad. Corporations. You could argue, you can hate on Ubuntu Canonical all you want, but a really seriously clean desktop Linux, which he set out to do from the very beginning, he says, oh yeah, watch this. You can hate the dude all you want. I don't even know his name, but he did it. He did it. He got Linux on the desktop. I mean, and Mint and all these other things. I mean, you can hate on the window manager all you want from Ubuntu, but he did things that other Debian enthusiasts and purists would never have done. He actually talked to corporations and said, what about this? What about your proprietary driver? Can we put it on our system? Mark Shuttleworth, yeah, that's him, sorry. Hugely controversial figure. Because he did. He started saying, okay, we're going to start doing all of this other stuff, and we're going to make it a usable system. And you could argue that Pop! OS is the ultimate manifestation of that. I'm running Pop! OS right now, and it is the easiest operating system I've ever installed. I would happily install this for any of my family, even when they were young. It's far easier to use than Mac. And this is a Linux operating system, and it would not exist without Ubuntu and Shuttleworth saying, you know what, it's okay to make concessions with proprietary device people in order to provide a user experience. And we'll work with them in the middle. We'll work with them midway, and then we'll move on. Now, it's not okay to spy on all their searches and everything. They went overboard on that, obviously. There's lots of history there that I just don't want to get into right now. And so then what? So then comes along Pop! OS, who wants to make their own hardware. Oh my God, we're going to actually have a company that makes Linux hardware. Everybody, even from the 90s, would say a company actually wants to make Linux hardware. That's like the ultimate dream. But then they had to play the same game that Shuttleworth started at Ubuntu and Canonical, saying, hey, we have to, and we're not going to beat up the people who don't provide proprietary drivers like NVIDIA. NVIDIA is still proprietary, but it still makes the best kick-ass driver out there for its product. In fact, the whole alternative to NVIDIA had to go away because it sucks so bad. And you saw the whole thing, right? The whole team. And so now we have, a really great NVIDIA driver from a proprietary provider who is working hand in hand with the Linux. It's a very controversial topic, but they're working hand in hand with the Linux community to make the best possible driver for NVIDIA without giving up control of the driver proprietary software. So the pressure to be a good open source player has at least influenced NVIDIA to do the right thing. Whereas Broadcom's like, fuck that, I don't care. They put whatever they want and their stuff's buggy and we have to figure out what it is and we have to reverse engineer it. NVIDIA's like, you know what? We're not going to let you make it. You can try to reverse engineer it until you can't. But we move so fast over here and we are a little bit afraid of people screwing it up, and plus we want control. So we're going to give you a really great driver and you're not going to have any reason to not use our proprietary driver. And so that middle of the road that we're hitting here, I think is not horrible. So I think someone has to step up, even if it costs users some money, but to make Minix available to non-tech people, just my opinion. So do I. And that's what Pop! OS is. Okay. And I think that's why the answer to this situation isn't, all Linux, all proprietary software is bad. It's also not all software should be permissive. But the dynamic is definitely changing, and that's what started this rabbit hole. Is the Linux Foundation is now charging you $300 to tell you you're a basic Linux person, and they're not telling you what's on the test other than these like large, swathy, things. You need to know all of network security in order to pass this test. Well, what am I going to study, right? And then you go to Lpic Essentials, which is run. This is a certification that's run and produced by Linux professionals for other professionals instead of corporations for professionals. And what do you get? You get a lot more details. You get a lot more help. You get a lot more books on it. You get a lot more open source material on it. And so you're seeing these dynamics at play in the materials themselves for how to learn all of this stuff. And then you see, even beyond this, you see like things like I'm considering like an open credential, which and then helps you go out and learn those things. And I've talked about it a lot. Ramingo remembers. He helped me with the open credential a lot when I started. Skip that and learn Rockstar. Yeah. The CUDA stuff. Yeah, other things they're aiming for. Yeah. Yep. CUDA is a big deal. And the stupid licensing. Yeah. I got an idea. Just give a certificate on your website and give it to yourself, and then you have more authority than you issue certificates anyway. So Specionaut, that's funny you say that, because going into that thing, That's exactly what the open credential is. I don't even have to give it to you. You can give it to yourself. You know, it's so much work just to write down these. This is why no one's doing it. Just to create this curriculum, just to say what should be in the list of things that you need to learn and maintain that. First of all, nobody's going to be able to keep that up unless they approach it from a software sort of angle. Like, I need to be able to fork it, I need to be able to add versions to it, and I need to say, okay, that's version 1.0. Which credential did you certify against? I certified against 1.3. Oh, 1.3's got systemd in it now or something. You know, the maintaining the list of skills all by itself is a full-time job. And I started it, Ramingo remembers, I still have those files somewhere. And we stopped at like 200-300 lines because it was literally like every single thing point by point in outline form that we felt and we kind of argued about some of them, but that you should learn to say that you're, you know, a Linux basic associate. You're self-attesting to your credentials. I agree completely. So my wife, this is the last point on this, and I'm going to take a break so I can come back and do what I said I was going to do. So my wife and I were talking about this the other day, and she says it's a lot like the art world. So the art world, there's no certificate for being an artist. It's absolutely laughable. What does their entire system run on? If you look at Hollywood, have you ever watched one of those making of videos? Like making of like the Lord of the Rings is a fantastic one. It's the bonus material on the DVDs back when that was the thing. It's filled with these amazing artists who've come together, who've been hired, who are the best in their industry, who are known to be the best because of trust and reputation. They don't need a certificate to show it. They have a body of work. Now it's art, so it's a little bit easier to look at what they've done. But you know, and they're not told what to do. But my point is, if you say you're an artist, the trust system confirms that you're an artist. So if you say you're an artist, you have to have stuff that proves you're an artist. But not only that, other people need to be able to vouch for you and say, oh yeah, it's a great artist. In fact, most of those positions are through recommendation and word of mouth. And I believe that's why at my mentor community, I've never had grades or anything, because it's all about having other people understand. Yeah. Paid reference to put on your CV. That's all it really is. Yep, it is. Haven't been references from most. Yeah, they don't ask anymore, particularly in tech. They don't ask for references anymore. What they do ask for is they want to see stuff you've done, and we talked about this before in the area of like Kubernetes application developer and things like that. There's not as many things that I can show that no, I know what I'm doing. So a certificate, having somebody else say, look at here's all the things you did, but if you don't need an extra person to do that, and I'm actually going to try to do that. I'm going to try to get the equivalent of the application developer certificate by making projects on my own and by creating my own list. And as I go down and I'm going through the list, and one of those things on the list is Redis. Redis is not on the list for Kubernetes application developer because it's a specific application. Helm's not on there either. So, but those are things that I want to put in my list. And by the way, this is an app, full disclosure, this is the core of the app I want to make someday called SkillStack, which keeps track of all this stuff for yourself. So then you can just push a button and you can kind of, or go, thumb through and see what you are, where you're at. And then you could share that with someone else. How creative you managed to stay that. Yeah. So, check out the Redis pub sub. I don't know what that is, but we're going to figure it out right now. So I'm going to take a break, let my ears rest, and you can listen to the howling wind. And I'll be gone for a bit. So I didn't mean to rant like that, but the reason so let's just backtrack in case you're coming at this. The reason I went on down that thing is because this morning I came in to my office and sat down, and the first thing I saw was a Linux associate that I've been talking about before, and then I went through to read what was on it, and there's no indication whatsoever what's on the test other than these really high swathy things, but you have to pay $300 to take the test, and you may or may not know it. So how do you get I assume they're going to have a course that tells you exactly what's going to be on the test. But now you're into it $600. And so, yeah, you've got some paper from the cloud native people in the Linux Foundation that says you know what you know. But I don't want to believe that that's the only way to prove to somebody who's going to hire you that you know what you're doing. So I'm sure I'll find something. It's gonna take me a year. So you guys are gonna hear about it a lot because who knows? I might actually meet somebody on the stream. Take care, Q, if you're taking off. Get email title. We appreciate your interest. Yeah. 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 Don't pay for education. You know what? I didn't say that. I think that education is a human right. It's a natural human right. And that's a hard thing because it's not built into our system. The people who get education for free in Europe and other places are not learning Kubernetes, as far as I know. So, yeah, well, I do books all the time. And groups for free, they do. Yep. I've been watching the documentary on modern geniuses. It was Freud and Nietzsche and Marx, and horrible, tragic lives compared to the Eastern people. But I'm watching the other one now. They're doing the geniuses of the old world. But a lot of this stuff, I gotta say, is the result of capitalism. I know you guys are gonna pay me as a Marxist. There's many things in Marxism that I agree with. Not Marxist-Leninism. That's not what I'm talking about. And not communism. They're different. Know what they mean before you go ranting on Twitter about them, by the way. And if you pick a practice-oriented course of study here in Germany, you'll know about Kubernetes. That's true. My wife was telling me about the practice-oriented stuff. I definitely want to look into that because that just out of an intellectual curiosity, because that's kind of more mentorship roles. It's like you're training for a particular thing, and that's really the way it should be: is help people find out what they want to do in life early, and then kind of train them to be specialists in that area with having the other foundations. I think society would go much farther if we did that. And if you look in the countries where there's not a lot of opportunity for education, like Japan, for example, they do. There's kind of a filter. You get to a certain point, you can't go higher than that. It doesn't work. Yeah. Well, I'm not trying to talk about that. I'm talking about. Let's not use buzzwords then. Okay. So, some of Marx's best ideas were that capitalism doesn't work. That unchecked money in the system will ultimately end up with what we have now. You have a plutocracy, and America is not. America is run by rich people. It's run by 1%, the 1%ers. The world is run by them, and that's the end goal of what comes about. Yeah. You have some opinion about studying Germany? Yeah. Well, Germany. Look, I could. You know what? I need to leave this topic alone because I'll talk about it all day because I really love it. But the problem is just that we don't have the money in any of the systems, and the scarcity in all of these systems causes the power to naturally go to the corporations and to the people that have the money. Even when something as universally groundbreaking and open source and communal, not communist, as Linux enters the scene. Linux is an amazing thing, and it was always very communal. It had a completely different principles and values to the entire thing, and now it is struggling to remain free from capitalist influence and have people with power take it over because it got on the radar. And that wouldn't even be an issue if society's values and governance systems were more in line with the open source movement from the beginning. And this is why I say Stallman has been like him or hate him, he's been one of the most influential people on the planet Earth because he has changed the way businesses organize themselves. He's created social change in addition to technology change. And, that is, if you take just that one thing, that's a big deal because our whole business models are more open now. And, there's always going to be people that are going to take advantage of that. But your CS education served you well. Stop printing empty money. Yeah. Fiat currency. Yeah, it's totally a problem. Yeah. I could talk forever about the problems with our economy. I really don't. It's just that old guy talking about the economy at that point. Well, I was in an atypical situation while the research is undergrad. Nice. Yep. You're learning about the latest cloud thingy will be capable to do other things in 3-year CS bachelor's. It's totally true. And boy, that is a great debate, isn't it? That's a really good conversation. How much general knowledge do you need versus... So first of all, I'm going to be very grateful for the liberal arts education I got, because it did teach me to do a lot of thinking and a lot of things that I would not have done, if I had specialized early. And I'm super glad I did that. I do think that there needs to be 2 phases of that education. That colleges are supposed to get you a job, plus it's helping you open your eyes and see the world and get grounded in the classics and all that thing. And there are 2 different objectives from college that I think if we could figure out a way to pull them apart and not necessarily do them in the same organization. And we kind of see this already happening in the economy. So Raritan, for example, is just out of college, and he's got this really great college education they did really well on and everything. But now he has to get into the industry, and even the Bloomberg people would come straight up and they would say, we have an entire system dedicated to taking college graduates who've proven that they're really smart and broad-minded and hardworking, and then they're going to go beyond that, and they're like, okay, that's the starting point. Now we have to actually show them how to work, because they're not taught how to work in college. They're taught how to study and how to write and how to research and think and all those things, to discover those things, but they don't learn how to meet a product. I mean, they do meet deadlines, but there's other things about being in the working world that they have to learn, and that includes the specific skills. And so you see the whole boot camp movement come up. But even before the boot camp movement was a thing, companies like Bloomberg and IBM have divisions that are responsible, and I Google, for finding really, really smart people and then training them in the things they need them to do. So they're looking more at if people are smart or not, which is where the whiteboard interview and everything comes from. And then they're training them in whatever it is that they need to learn. So, they assume a couple languages or something. So that's, but that entire secondary education, kind of tertiary education, comes after college. All of that education is run by corporate America. It's either run by them or you teach yourself. And that's where I am. So I taught myself those things after I realized Russian wasn't going to give me the job I needed. And since that time, I've been committed to documenting and helping other people understand how to do that for themselves, so that they can then avoid being controlled by any particular corporation teaching them what they want them to do and how to do things. And that's where the Linux Foundation and other certificates come in, because they have those opinions. I think you should be in control. I think you should be in control. Just so I can learn how to become a number of a company's balance sheet until I'm 65. Yeah. Yeah. Academic research. Yeah. And it's just all over the place, right? Because there's colleges. It depends on the college, right? There's some colleges that are more focused on, academia, academic skills, and liberal arts. And by the way, I cherished my humanities education at BYU. It was amazing. But I was really lucky because I also worked while I was there. So all of the technical skills that got me my job, my first technical job, and my job at IBM, and my job at Nike, all of those skills I learned while working in the Computers and Language Lab of the Humanities Center. And it was never officially taught. There was like 1 or 2 classes in how to use HyperCard, I think. And that stuff was never officially taught. And so, but I learned it because I was around it all the time. And so I learned how to code, I learned how to do internet stuff, I learned how to do web pages. And I look forward to coming to work in that lab every day. I would get giddy because I could sit in there and just explore. And so I was really, really lucky because, and I do think colleges provide this environment on accident sometimes. Sometimes they do it on purpose. But because I was working there in the language lab and I was able to be exposed to all these great tech, by the way, that stuff was not happening in the computer science department. Computer science department was stuffing Pascal down everybody's throats and debating about whether it was going to last over versus C, blah, blah, blah. They weren't using any practical applications. But in the language department, they were using practical applications, primarily Microsoft products, but also PC stuff. They were like crunching languages, writing code to like do lexical analysis of the Book of Mormon because it was a Mormon school, all kinds of stuff like that. And I was like dead set in the middle of all of this amazing innovation that was happening because people were writing stuff they needed for the humanities college. And I'm so, so grateful for that. If I hadn't been around that, number one, I wouldn't have discovered the internet because I was there when somebody said, hey, yeah, we got an internet out of that. And I was like, what? And I wouldn't have been able to write the language tutorial software. I wouldn't be able to start my own business doing flashcards, using HyperCard. All of those practical applications of software design and stuff came because I was in the lab of an organization that was designed on teaching humanities, and that was their goal. And so they were very practical. So they were learning the code and all this stuff with the intent of making something a user could use. And that brings us full circle back to user stories. What is the user story here? So I got lucky because even though I left, I did a semester of computer science, and then I went back into the Russian department. I'm really glad I did because the Russian department working in the language lab was all about practical applications of technology. It wasn't about this esoteric data structures and algorithms approach, which is valuable to a certain degree for a certain time. But it wasn't focused on making things people need. And I got that. And I don't know if colleges do that. And I don't know how to make or help others find opportunities unless they create their own. So people like Reardon went to college. So, it's like Reardon, there's other people too. They've talked with me while they've been going through college and like, we didn't learn any of this. I don't know how many times I've heard it. I wish somebody had talked to me about this stuff while I was in college or before I was in college. I'm not saying don't go to college. I'm saying if you go to college, please find something to do that, and hopefully this stream, that's obviously one of the major goals of this stream, is to find silly little fun over-engineered experiments so that you can learn about that. And in that, you're going to find something that you want to do. You're going to find something that you personally want to make. Maybe a business idea, maybe it's something at your job. You're going to find those things and you're going to learn what's necessary just in time learning to make those things happen. And if you have the skills to do that, you don't need to depend on a foundation to give you a certificate. You don't need to depend on, and to me, those are the very principles of the free software movement, is this empowerment of the individual. And there's just, it just continues to be a struggle because people want to take that control away from you constantly. They want to tell you that if you don't have the certificate, you're not good enough. They want to tell you that if you don't, go to this school, that you can't get this job. There's all these institutions that are at odds with you being personally empowered. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. So anyway, as you said, even with business use case, we always had research areas with corporate interests. It's not really that bad. Yeah. Just as some of them now, it's really disappointing. Yeah. Do you have to? It'll evolve. Academia. Yeah, I think so too. Kubernetes architecture and design is an emergent system. I agree. I need to write about that eventually. Please, if you write about that, I want to read all about it. See, that's the kind of thing. Hey, Harrison Plutz, I would totally pay you for that. I don't have very much money, but that's the kind of thing I would pay for. See, what's his name, who talked about the third industrial age or revolution or something like that? It's about the sharing economy because there's zero opportunity cost now. You guys remember that whole thing? I think it's really exciting. I think we're on the edge of a future that's going to be very interesting. So, something extra to do, yeah. It basically filter for HR. Completely agree. Build things, join research, join open source projects. Yes, do internships. Don't rely on being spoon-fed information or on what one certificate says is the way to go. You should have multiple, just like anything, like with critical thinking, you should have multiple ways of getting at it. Most HR people don't even know what they, yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, don't use HR people. Did you see them? There's a huge video on debunking the personality test. It's really funny. Wasted my time in college fooling around. People do that too. 25 and I don't know what to do. Vice documentary was awesome. Did you watch that? It's cool. So, yeah, well, I'll just say that about fooling around. So I've said this before. College is for 4 things. College is for getting a skill that you can get a job with, which I think they suck at, most of them. It's for finding who you are and what you believe on your own terms. It's like exploration, intellectually, sexually, whatever. People, they find themselves, right? It's for creating a social network and meeting people of like-minded peers, some of whom you might end up married to, and one at least, and doing your own laundry, learning adulting, learning how to be on your own. Those 4 things can be learned without college. The problem is that it's harder to do that. There's all kinds of ways you can learn any one of those 4 things. But college just makes it easy because it gives us, like, we love easy. And it's this package. It's like, I'm going to give you all of these things in a package that's going to cost you, by the time you're done, $200,000. So for $200,000, we're going to teach you those 4 things. And they don't even teach you the skill very well, which is the one that's going to pay back the money. So it's a problem. It needs to be addressed. But I think that the more that we break those things up, and once you know that those are the things that you need to learn to move on, then you can create a plan for yourself and say, well, what am I doing right now to improve my social network in my area where I want peers? If you're an artist, if you're a technologist, am I going to the right meetups, which you should be doing, right? What are the skills I need to get a job? What job do I even want to need? But in industry supervisor, currently a senior dev. Yep, there you go. After 5 years, right? And it's good to see you, Alec. Thank you for stopping by. The universities are for and where they were created to begin with. Yeah, they absolutely do. People go to university now because they just do, because you can't. And the truth is, you have to go to the university because you can't get it will reduce your income. Statistically, there's good statistics on this. So you have to go. You just have to go to a fancy university, but you still have to fulfill those 4 needs. Even if you go to a cheaper university, you go to a community college, but you have to make sure you fulfill those needs in the best way possible. So if you don't want a professional peer group to come out of community college, but you just want to go to community college so you can get the job, then you need to supplement your social networking by live streaming, by going to meetups, by doing all those other things. But as long as you know the strategy and you have a plan in place, and that's for you to come up with. That's not for me to tell you what to do. You can go into any college experience and say, this is what I want out of this. And you can find those things. So, and there's a number of things I need to write about. Those are some of the things I would really like to put more down on paper. New job is using WebAssembly and Go. Oh, wow. Really? Alec, you're going to have to tell us all about that, man. I'm going to get you an official entry here eventually. One of the things we're doing here is making people not feel like less than. So I'm going to strip this off so that it just says Alec here, and it just has your name. Eventually I'm going to do that because I don't like making people feel like they're not as important just because they're using YouTube. So, and you sound like one of our good YouTube joins. We had somebody asking us how to hack yesterday. Can you show me how to break into this software so I can get it for free? Yeah, please ask him Mo about that. I'm going to take a little break. I'll be back in a few minutes. All right. Sorry about I was having fun with the YouTube crowd. Look, I'm just talking from experience, so hopefully that'll change. I haven't seen it yet. I definitely want to go look at it. I'm a little afraid to, Ramigo. Uh-oh. Hyperlog log? What the fuck? All right. So you can probably hear my stepson. He's kind of loud. If you can, let me know. So before we get going, I'm going to, the second half here, I'm actually going to do some Redis stuff. God, that was a full 2 hours of just talking about things. You know what? If you're new to this stream, just get used to it. I can hardly ever keep on task, but I feel like it's important. So it's all on task in the larger sense of like, I believe it's contributing toward what I want to accomplish. Probably have toast in my teeth. Am I still broadcasting? Yes. Okay. So what should we talk about? Well, Redis. So again, my exploration of Redis is to get acquainted with it. It's used a lot in programming. I found out it's one of the things that they use to implement OAuth codes. So they store the code during the OAuth 2 flow, which is, I'm not going to get into that today, but it's used for lots of other data that doesn't need to last in a longer way. It doesn't need to be queried like it would in Postgres or with a MongoDB database. So if you're new to this, most of the people that are here probably aren't, but I'm saying this just in case you're new to this stuff. And I'm brand new to Redis. I know what it is. I know what kind of database it is, but I have no experience whatsoever deploying it or using it yet. And just like context the other day, I'm going to create my own little learning opportunity by making something on stream. And you're welcome to follow along. I have a lot of experience in other areas, so hopefully I can bring some of that to bear to help me through this. And I'm not ashamed of not knowing shit and screwing stuff up, obviously. But if you have Redis experience, please feel free to chime in and tell me where I'm doing something wrong. And we're going to come back to user stories. We're going to write a user story for what it is that I want to make. And then we're going to talk about why Redis is the right implementation. So let's finish our user story first, because I do really want to follow the process that you would normally follow in if you were making something for real. For this is real, but something for like that you're getting paid for. So what is user story? Well, so the first user story is I'm just going to stick with bullets for now. I want to be able to, and I'm going to use the user story in my own terms. User stories are much less strict about how you write them. If you can stop thinking about the constraints of how you write the requirements for a system, you can kind of move on. So I'm just going to be very informal. So how about that? I want to be able to give people points. Points on the live stream for, and I already have that up here, but for when they make an interesting contribution. I want live stream community avatars I guess, to be different depending on the number of points they receive. And so this is the, this idea. I wanna how about this? I want to find, you know what, I can just remove that and just put this and do that whole non-sentence thing that people do. It doesn't seem like it. I aced business communications. That was my favorite. One of my favorite classes in all of my college career was business communications. I loved it. Live stream community avatars to be something different depending on the number of points received. Okay. Should be different depending on the number of points they receive. That's not really a user story. That's more of a requirement. I'm going to put user stories / requirements. Just because it's like more of a line item. What I really, oh God, you're old. So I want to be able to give them points. I want them to have little avatars that show something different. What else do we want? We want, yes, definitely. We want to be able to store that. So want to be able to store information about live stream community members that persist between live streams. I mean, that's a basic thing, right? But that's the base this thing. Looking fresh. I don't know if I would call it fresh. It's not the, what's my editor font? Here we go. You can read all about it. It's mono nerd something. There you go. So yeah, be able to store information about live stream community members. Can you see that, or is that off the screen? Probably getting close to being off the screen there. I'm gonna have to chop it. There we go. So I just want to be able to store information about people. Another thing too is we need to be able to need a way for users to, I'm going to say use it for community members. How about that? Community members to associate their IDs across chat services. So this is something that I want for Redis as well. This is where Redis, yep, it's Ubuntu Nerd Font Mono. That's what it is. How did you get that username? Did you actually get that username, underscore? I'm impressed. Yeah. So, see, your situation is going to be hard because you're going to need to be able to map yourself to another. So to get points, you're going to have an avatar that we know. Just the IDs across chat services. I want to have want to allow community members to have a unique identifier that is specific to RWXRob.live. So if you don't like Denny 1111 to show up on the stream, and you want something else to show up, for example, you can choose that. And then I want to be able to create a system where you can store all this. You can and the way that I'm thinking I'm supposed to talk about how yet. I'm doing the engineer thing. If I was in a meeting right now, everybody would say, "Shut up, Rob. We're not done. We're not there yet. We're not talking about how yet." But I'm going to talk about how anyway. So for me, about glue code, well, it depends on what you're talking about with glue. If you're talking about like duct tape, Python, Perl, and stuff like that. IDs, comma, persist is a user story. A software engineer wrote this. Absolutely, Peter. I know. You know what? I almost made a comment about that when I used the word persists. You caught me. You totally caught me red-handed. It's just not a good user story. I'm an engineer. I have the same problems. You totally caught me. This is me writing like an engineer. In fact, the fact that I have bullet points already makes me an engineer. It's really... User stories are supposed to... He's right, people. User stories are supposed to be general. They're like written from the software. Okay, so let me see if I can... Let's do the right thing here. Let's do our due diligence. Project management word. How could I reword this in terms of a person? Let me pretend like I'm a person using the system instead of the guy making the system. All right. As a chat user, I want, yes, Mighty Core. There you go. Thank you. What's a person? Okay. So there we go. Thank you very much, Mighty Core. As a chat user, you know what? Thank you for that. That's a nice way to do this. See, you would get points for that if the system were set up. It's easier than writing user stories. It kind of is. I want to be able to how about this? What if I said, I guess there's kind of another, I think we have to, okay, so another thing is identifying the actors in the system, right? That's UML speak. Do people still do that? Do people still do that whole thing where they identify the actors in the system? Use Vercel, Rob? No, I don't know if I would. What is it? What is Vercel? If I'm not mistaken, since Redis file, there are a few new features called streams, logs, and pub/sub queues. Maybe it's worth taking a look into those. Yes. After you guys are familiar with the usual key features like Redis provides. Yes. Pub/sub queues, that's kind of what I'm looking for myself, actually. Thanks, Peter. I'm going to say users. I'm going to make a list of user types. User types. Actors. Actors is a word from UML land that is probably frowned upon these days. So who's using this system? Well, we have the chat user, right? I'm going to flesh that out. So we have a live stream, community, chat, community member. We're going to say chat user, kind of. Then we have the moderator, or the person doing the live stream. Hey, this is Mega Lab. Yep. Yep, I actually did a thing on them. So, yep, take a look at the FAQ. Actually, there's a specific FAQ on how I do them. The FAQ talks about the question mark stuff. I made a video on it too. Developer workflow minus all of the glue code requires to set everything up. Yes. So the primary user of the system is going to be the live stream community members. And then the live streamer. So that would be me. Used to be now.sh. I'm not aware what that it is. What is now.sh? What is now? It's actually a website. That didn't work. Vercel. Is that like Excel? Developers, oh, Next.js. God. Oh my God. Run screaming. I am not interested. I hate React. You can like it. It's very popular. I freaking hate React. I hate it. It's destroying us. More of a Vue guy myself, but yeah. And now contribute to Vercel development by creating an account. I get it. Yep. Not into it. But it doesn't mean it's not good. You probably, look, I'm telling you just my preferences. There, the end. As a chat user, if you fixed all of the gripes that I had with React. Exactly, Jasper. See, Jasper Panda, bully. Is that a thing people say? As a chat user, I want to give people points on the live stream. No, that's not for chat users. That's for as a live streamer, I want to give people points on the live stream when they make an interesting contribution. I want to, as a chat user, it's interesting because it's like, is giving them a fancy avatar, is that a user need, or is it a live streamer need? Where is the need coming from? Where is the desire to do that? As a chat user, I want to control my avatar color and name and synchronize across different chat services. So that's good because chat services. All right. Yeah, that's relatively good. All right. What else do you want? I want to be able to store information about the live stream community members that persist between live streams. That's the engineering one that's kind of screwed up. We need to write that differently. So let's write it differently. So as a live streamer, I want to store the information about my community members for archiving, so I can quickly look up information about them and display different things during a live stream or off stream. Is that a thing? All right, so that's another story there. Really good talk from Evan. Yep. Yeah, I love it, Alec. Icky didn't think of the advent of 5G. The likes of Cloudflare are going to be streamlining all these processes of prod code as a bundle service. I don't want to talk about that. You can talk about it. Bundling things through cloud solutions. My biggest fear in all the cloud solution thing is the centralization that's happening. And it's starting we had that DNS outage. It took out the world because Cloudflare had a DNS outage. And I'm really worried about that. I've talked about that a lot. And nobody cares because they want to save money. Which they used to do back end, and now they also do front end. Netlify used to do front end, and they're starting to do back end. This is true. Netlify's done a lot of amazing things. That's a great company, by the way. I already did this one. Okay. So as a live streamer, I want... Did that already? That is not... You know what? I would really love to be giving points to Peter for having me do this right. Because now it's just simplified my user stories. You know? What else do I want? So as a chat user, I want to control my avatar, blah, blah, blah. What other things do chat users want? I think chat users want to look up URLs and stuff, right? I want to look up. I am also streaming on Periscope. Yeah, it's funny. I have 4 people there that are following. Yeah, are you over there right now? How's it going, Mac? So, as a chat user, I want to be... This isn't really part of this system. This is a different system. They want to be able to see a schedule of events and stuff, right? So, to be able to see schedule of things happening, they want to be able to search the current and previous chat And this is the thing I can do with Redis if I actually start to log all of the chat messages. And that's one of the, I'm glad we're doing this because that was not a requirement I was thinking of before. Control my avatar to see a schedule, to search the current and previous chat histories by date, keyword, etc. What else we got? Looks so sleek. I'm glad I got my FAQ ready. There we go. It's on there. You can go read it. I can't remember the name. It's Ubuntu Nerd Mono, I think. So then what do we got? We got, wait, what did I do? What have I done, people? All right. I must have, yeah, I did. I suspended my terminal. You guys ever done that? I accidentally suspended my terminal by pushing Control S. Watch. Let me show you in case you ever had this problem. So you see up here the stuff I'm typing. So if I type Control S, which was designed back when terminals were teletype machines, and they wanted to slow down the incoming buffer of information because the teletype couldn't keep up. So they created a suspend character, which if you do Control S, it types. And now I can type. See all this stuff? See this? Okay, look, it shows you can see my screen key, screen key, it's showing, I know. So the fix for this is Control Q, boom, and it will still do it. And that's really important that you understand that. All of those things it buffered up to do, it still does it. And a lot of times you'll do like really radical things there. So you might want to just exit Control C to get out, and rather than to do Control Q if you found out about it too late. Yeah, it's pretty common trap. There's no way to remap it. I wish there were, because when you do it, it's above VI. VI can't catch it or trap it or anything. So nothing can. So there's some good user stories. So we have two users of the system. We have the community members themselves, which are going to use the system in whatever way. And then we have a live streamer. That's me, in this case, what do they want to do? So mostly chat users just want to see what's going on. They want to they want to control their name. They want to see fancy things by their name. Do we want to have it so that people participating in the stream can give points to people because they like what they said or did or something? I kind of like that. I mean, it doesn't have to all go into the first version of the system, but I would kind of like it if somebody who participates in the stream who is registered with me can give other people in the stream points and say, oh man, I love that what you did there. Good job. You know what I mean? But I don't know what that would look like. I'm just saying to feed non-command user events. Yes. And we're going to do that. Okay. So that's a good one. Yep. We need to give them, yeah. Yep. Okay. So, wants to be able to control, to send certain non-chat commands, like with this thing here. That's something people would like to do. I blast writing some of that for a Discord channel. And it is. This is really fun, right? So that's one of the reasons I'm doing it, so we can learn about Redis. Someone going to create a bot that spams the points for the lols. Of course they will. But they can't. Well, here's the thing. Well, I got to be careful with that. I told you guys once upon a time about my Skillbox system that got abused. I don't think you can abuse the system by giving people too many points, because there's going to be a finite set of points you can give somebody. Does that make sense? It's that whole idea of like, phone's much faster, right? So I don't think we should be able to allow everyone to +1 everybody else, because that's just going to go like crazy. I kind of wonder how that would even be done. So when, like when people do this, when they do, and they go like this, when people do that, like a threshold of available points based on your rank. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like you get, based on your trustworthiness, you get, I want to give people rep. You know what I mean? And I want to allow them to have perks. The whole goal of the system. So let me go put this here. I'm going to put this here. The whole goal of the system is to promote instructive, useful community participation in a fun way. That's really all it is. I just want to promote instructive, inclusive, useful community participation in a fun way. Yeah, I don't want it to see it to be elitist. I'm not going to put what I don't want here. I'm going to put what I do want. But this has been the goal all along. Variability, yes. Even as simple a word to vect, yes. Ooh, what would that be? You can do multiple claps on Medium. Yes, you can. I don't particularly like. You only have so many claps per day, by the way. It reps the article much more than a single clap. Yeah, I know. When somebody, I actually do like that. I don't like the whole like mentality is a different thing, by the way. So I want to be careful not to fall into that trap too much. Things become true because more people like them in our social world, our social media world. And that annoys me because the most innovative ideas, if the Innovator's book, if there's one thing that's clear from the Innovator's book that I put down for a while to read Ferry's book, but if there's one thing that's clear from that book, innovation does not happen because it's popular, right? So that is that is the fundamental reason that I want to be able to give points. I want to be able to give people points at my discretion. To give points and take away points. To give and remove points. To people on the live stream when they make an interesting contribution. All right. So, and this is a difference, right? So I am, cinema is not really actions such as a like, which means I like this. It's just but just my state. The thing we do is we get the +1s in GitHub, and those I think are closer to what we want. Those are like this, I want this, or I agree with this. You know what I mean? How's it going, Red Pen X? So actually, I want to be able to set forth votes, put forth. He's a bit of a dictator. I want to be able. How's it going here? I want to be able to put forth live time constrained voting on topics in a fun way. So some way we could see that. And what else? You're wrong. I want to give you points. Okay. How could we do that? Let's play with that idea. Would that be, I read as SVG, CSS animations. You know what? I've watched a few other streamers, and then that's the whole bits thing, right? For a certain number of bits of participation, you can make things happen on the screen. So, okay, let's do that. So as a user, I want to use points to make things fun happen on the live stream. And I was watching as a bit toggle, I think. He's got, you can, Primogen has it too. It's like changing background and stuff. So yeah, as a user, my product manager heart just melted. I grew 3 sizes. Did I do it the right way? I grew 3 sizes. Yeah, I actually had it. I was just, before you get too proud of me, being the engineer that I am, I use the word persistent or persist, and somebody called me out on it and they're like, that is not a user story. I'm like, you know what, you're right. So we changed it, and it was their suggestion. It was Peter, one of our Peters suggested that. So you would get points for that, yeah. So actually, you know what else about the points? Where does it go? This is something else I just thought about. Yeah, it's good we have a project manager here. Thanks for joining, Red, because this is the kind of stuff that needs project management for sure. We're doing our user stories on this whole interactive fun thing, so that as an excuse to learn Redis and a bunch of other stuff. It should be as a viewer I want in order to. Really? I want, okay. Well, fine. As a chat user, as how I was always taught in your bachelor's days, in your BA days. Let's see. I want to be able to see schedule of things. Okay, well, I like that one much better. I'll have to figure out a way to write that. I'm kind of sticking with this. You can also do things like crazy. Scott's awesome. Oh wait, that's a different teacher. The muted crowd. How well did you understand my explanation? I did. You know what? Mac, I do this all the time. You know what? Thank God you said that. Okay, so little sidetrack story. So in this little community that I started, it was an experiment. I called it my learning experiment for everybody. I started mentoring 3 people at a time in 2013, and grew up a lot of, it got bigger and bigger. And so I had TAs. I had 125 people at a time, and classrooms with 12, 15, and 3 at a time per whatever. And I let them dictate how to learn. And that's how I started doing meme learning. We started like coding 9cat and whatever meme that they wanted to say, let's write some code about that meme. And then I had a core set of principles, for loops and, that kind of thing that they needed to learn. And I would let them dictate what we made live. So we would be there, and I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I had people come up to me all the time and say, oh my God, this is the most amazing way to learn. I love that you're doing this. And one person who's now employed at Coin, as far as I know, is a full stack person, said, to this day, I remember doing that because I remember the concept because I was associated with that one thing. So so your point's well taken, and you say, and there were literally times, that's the way it comes to me. There were times when we were coding it, and I would say, okay, we can do this one of 2 ways. I didn't have a textbook. It was very Montessori. Montessori is the closest thing to what I did. But the one thing I don't think Montessori would do is ask their people how to change the curriculum. And I would be in the front up there, and I'd be typing around. I was like, okay, which one do you think is easier to understand, guys? This one or this one? And they would say, oh, that one's obviously better. And one time, the other reason I had TAs is I could listen to the TAs who had just recently learned the concepts, and I was paying them like $10 an hour in breaks on their tuition to help. And I would listen to how they taught the principle. So I was like in this little microcosmic classroom all the time, and I would see, oh, you really don't need that. You just need this. And one of the TAs would explain something that I had been explaining another way, way simpler than I could have. And I was like, oh my God. And I would like mine that. And I would put it so they got to be able to say they were TAs. I got the benefit of learning how to explain things more simply. And all of us were just in this lab. And I have this mantra, it gives me goosebumps, that learning happens in the lab, not the lecture hall. And that's like one of my favorite quotes of my own, is that that's how I learned. And I use the story of my calculus class in college. I was terrified. I was a freshman, and I was in this big, huge 500-person lecture hall listening to this guy talk about Pythagoras. and he was going off, and I was like, what does this have to do with the assignment I have due in 2 days? Nothing at all. And I was panicked, because when you go to college, they don't teach you how to be in control of your own learning up to that point. All of a sudden you're thrown to the wolves, and if you don't do it, you fail out, lose your scholarship, and all kinds of shit. And I was terrified. I was like, I can't learn this. And I tell this story all the time. I have to tell my family they're a little bit loud. Give me a second. So the way this story goes is that I actually found the lab, and another student said, dude, you need to go to the lab. I was like, what lab? He's like, and apparently there was this calculus lab, and it was a bunch of, sort of pedantic seniors and PhD candidates who were there to show you how much they had learned. And everybody had their non-caffeinated Coke out, and they were all, it was this cozy feeling of being in a lab, and everybody, you could smell pencil shavings and all kinds of stuff. It was just wonderful. I mean, it's just, that's where the learning was happening. It was just bustling with learning energy, and hey, what did you get for this? And it was so freaking awesome. And that, if there's one reason to go to college, that's it. I mean, it was this rubbing shoulder to shoulder with other people who were struggling through learning the same things as you. And if I can recreate that environment over a live stream, I will have won. That's the kind of thing I've always wanted to make. So I wanted to do that in the company that I started. And that's when I started to see that. In fact, I remember one day in particular, there was like a huge snowstorm outside, and we had these windows in this tiny little, townhome. And we were all in there, and we were just like learning how to code, and it was just totally, we had like some Minecraft music on or something, and it was just wonderful. I mean, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. And I'm, and it was tough running this thing yourself, but this all come about because I could ask people directly, which one do you like better? Which one's clearer? And they said, oh, that one for sure. And I'm like, okay. And I would literally change my document on the fly. That's why I'm so big into Markdown and so against textbooks and stuff. And it turns out Socrates was too. I'm watching this documentary on Socrates right now. And the Wisecrack guys talk about how Socrates was against written things because it was, I go to sleep playing Minecraft music. Yeah. And so definitely that's a big yes there. Thank you for that little memory lane journey. Once in the lab, one of those older pedantic teachers suddenly stood up and shouted at us for being too loud, when in fact we were just working on our university project, wrapping up an M68K computer board from scratch. So this is the thing. It depends on the lab, right? I guess. So, yeah. I guess it depends on the lab. But I was a lab assistant in the language lab. And so I was able to be there and help people learn computers. And I think that's where the love of helping people understand computers came from, because I was also a language instructor. I was helping people learn how to speak French and stuff. And so that is really addicting, helping people to move forward. And director was successful to recreate this feeling, really. The students liked it so much that we were able to make them work for 6 hours straight on a 3-hour class. My director and me were so impressed. They were only leaving one of the students out. And here's the thing. Ken Robinson talks about this. I have his book right here. I should probably get it for you. So there's the book right here. So Ken Robinson's book, Out of Their Minds. Where's Ken? This is when he was young. He's passed on now, but in this book they talk about learning to be creative and how it activates everything, and that if you tap into someone's natural level of learning and creativity, they'll go forever. They'll live stream for 10 hours. because that's how we're built. I love teaching my friends who want to code. Remember the struggle when I first started out. Yeah, and we all have that, right? And everybody likes to be the one who teaches. So we like to be the one in control. And so, yeah. Last was giving the students get derogation to take. Oh, wow. Did you hear the dog? Yeah. Yeah, she wants to go for a walk. I should probably go for a walk with him actually. So I'm gonna cut it early. Sorry guys, but I think we got a list of good things here. There was no Redis yet, but we will get to the Redis. I promise. I'll be back tonight, and I'll be coding some more things on this. But I want to capture Mac's point there. So make things happen on the live stream. What's a better way to write that, Mac? You said you wanted to be able to, comment on ways that something is active. It's like active voting of presentation performance. Oh gosh, I don't know if I want that. I don't want that. I know you want that. You know why? Because you want to say, Mr. Rob, I disagree. Mr. Rob, I agree. Okay, fine. All right. Live commentary, like live rating of, I want to rate the live streamers' current performance or agreement. Did I say that right? Is it that? It is that. It is positive. Our agreement. That's pretty scary. Because first of all, if I don't agree with you, maybe I don't care. But like all of a sudden it'd be like, woo, like a bunch of negative, sad faces. How about this? Emojis. Enter. I want to be able to use emojis easily. Is that not a word? Oh. Use emojis without the overhead of looking them up. How about that? Steer the direction of a session. I want to be able to steer the direction of a session. I think that might be related to just if we made it easy for you to send emojis. If I all of a sudden get a ton of like you're off track emojis, then I'll start to know, and I can count up how many of those. And so I want to be able to count how many of a specific emoji have performance emoji, we'll call them performance emoji, has been entered recently and in real time. That's kind of cool. So, you know, that whole thing where like the hearts come falling down in like Instagram or whatever. So like if there's something somebody really likes, we want to have people be able to like really directly interact. Emoji, not emotes. Did I mean emoji? Did I get it right? First time question, why do you use Tmux rather than Tilix? Mostly because I didn't know what Tilix was and Tmux is the standard. What is Tilix? Tilix. Linux. I'm going to go look and see. Here, I'll put this over here for you guys too. What is Tilix? It's a window manager? I laugh at you. A tiling terminal emulator. Okay, never mind. I take it all back. Tilix terminal. It's a graphic version of Tmux. You don't know me very well, so you must be a first-time user. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to make fun of you if you use it. I'm not attacking you, please. Rabbit hole emoji. Exactly, Raritan. Thank you. But it needs to be so that you can just type a word and boom. Do you know what I mean? So that you guys can just type. Actually, all the benefits are gone. The two main benefits of Tmux are obviously the reading screen real estate management, the fact that it works on the terminal, and the fact that I can have a TMUX session running on a remote system and disconnect and then reconnect to the same one without it going away. So if I want to run a server or something, I can do it under TMUX even if it doesn't have backgrounding possibilities. So that's TMUX in a nutshell. It's just a better version of Screen. We've been using Screen since the 70s. Other people have, not me, since the 80s for me. But yeah, not a fan. Probably a reason it didn't succeed. Yeah, anyway, so we'll come back to Redis later. I'm almost done here. So I like that one. I like the ability to send emojis, and then we can use emojis for that kind of thing, Mac. So if you use emojis on agreement, steer the direction of a session, perhaps by through the type of emojis submitted. Did I get that right? This is a fun project. I'm actually getting into it now. I was kind of into it before, but particularly because we're going to be using Redis and some of this. This might be one of those things where it's supposed to be a Postgres thing, but I don't know. Attaching, detaching sessions is useless. You can't attach and detach? Forget it. Holy cow. Why would you make a styling manager that doesn't have that? I don't know. Okay. So yeah. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. So, I think that so far this thing has been public. Git diff. Log events when done. Oh, by the way, any of you who were playing around with my auth tool, my OAuth tool, I had a bug that wasn't saving. It wasn't storing the changes between sessions. That was what was causing my problems with my TMUX session. So the 1.2.1 has the fix. It's the latest one I just put out there. Why is wait for interrupt gone? Oh, I moved it to the other system. Okay. Save. User stories and wait. Move to another thing. Why is my mic stand red? Mostly it was to just, I didn't really have a color thing. I have chroma key color tape coming. So yeah, this is, you weren't able to see it before because it was positioned differently. I'm using a 40-inch monitor right now. It's a TV. Don't get excited. It's not a 40-inch 4K. That would be way too expensive. And so my camera's right here. It used to be up here, and you couldn't see stuff. So if you must know, that's why. This was just a way for me to grab it and have the cable not be in the way. So, but I'm going to cover that with chroma key so it doesn't look like, it looks kind of weird, I know, like this hovering red thing, right? So that'll change. That'll change next. I noticed that yesterday. It's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. Yeah, this Hercules stand is really good though. This is a kind of a performance stand. It's more of a. Yep. I think that is good. I'm gonna go catch up with my wife on her walk with the dog, and a floating mic. It is going to be Mac. That's coming. Yeah, it is. That's what I'm talking about. I have gaffer tape in chroma key color coming. It should be here tomorrow, and so I'm gonna wrap the whole thing so that you only see this part of the mic, and that'll be it. It'll be floating. Yeah. The only problem with that is if I do this, I'll have a big line through me that you'll be able to see the background if I move over too much. I mean, like these dumb things matter, right? I'm going to go ahead and call it today. Guys, thanks for coming by. It looks like we have a fair amount of people here today. I appreciate you stopping by. I don't, in fact, I'm just curious. Twitch top. And no, we're still not up there. We still don't have, well, it's like the lowest is 42 today, but that's fine. I'm not in this to be popular. I'm just in this to learn and to make good friends and So we will talk to you guys later, and I'll. When I say guys, by the way, I'm trying to find. We'll talk to y'all. How about that? And I'm going to be doing my sessions. I'll be back in tonight sometime, prompt time. All right. Take care.